Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I thought I would break down how I annotate my books for you guys, whether this is for school or just something that I want to do on my own. Annotating has always been something that I really love to do. I just think it's a really cool way to be able to look back on the parts of the book that you loved and maybe parts of the book that you hated, depending on how you annotate. Anyway, there are a million ways to annotate books. There's no correct way. I just thought I'd share how I typically annotate my books in an effort to let you guys in on some of my top secrets. So the first thing that I do is always have my annotating case beside me. This is just like a little clutch purse thing that one of my friends got me for Christmas one year, and basically this is a perfect case for annotating. It has room for all of my essentials, and it's really helpful when you're sort of on the go, or if you're at a coffee shop or the library or at school and you want to have all of your annotating supplies together. This is a great tool to have on hand. So I always have this with me. And then of course I always have a book with me. Obviously this method is mostly for hard copy books, but in the instance where I am annotating an ebook, I'll typically just use the highlighter tools if I really like a line or something. And yeah, and that's how I typically annotate on ebooks. So typically I like to annotate books the second time that I read them, just so I'm fully invested the first time, not worried about annotating or underlining certain things. Although that does come with a few exceptions. A lot of times with classics and books that are like heavier or have topics that are a little bit more dense to get through, I will annotate my first time just because it helps me to be able to look back and be like, okay, who is this character? Did I like them? Did I hate them? What's going on? So an example of that would be when I read The Great Gatsby for the first time. I just bought a secondhand copy at a local bookstore, and you can see I have a few little tabs in there. And I did this not because I needed to for school. I actually did not need to read this for school, which I think is a crime. I read this on my own and just thought I'd annotate it, and it was really helpful because there are certain moments that I loved and certain things that I didn't pick up on the first time I read it. And so after, when I was flipping through, I was able to kind of go back and be like, oh, that's what that was. Speaking of classics and books that I have annotated, I have 3 examples of books that I've annotated and how I've annotated them. I've annotated all 3 of these books differently. These are all different styles of annotation that I use on a daily basis, and so I thought I would share those things with you today. Starting with The Great Gatsby, this I think is my favorite style of annotation, just because for me it is the simplest, and as someone who has anxiety and is stressed in general, I think the simpler I can make this task, the better. Not that it's really a task, it's something I enjoy anyway, but I don't know, this just helps my brain focus more. And basically this method is just using one color tab per book. Now, I don't recommend this if you're going into a book that you know you love and you're gonna have a lot of different moments where you'll have a lot of different thoughts. So for example, if you're doing a high fantasy book, I recommend using multiple tabs to tab different moments that you love or moments you find funny, just so it helps you decipher a little bit more. But in terms of classics, I typically like to just have one color tab, and then I can write in the margins about things that I liked about a specific moment, because I find a lot of times I end up changing my mind about certain moments and things that I like. And with this method as well, I also just underline the line that I wanted to tab in the first place. Sometimes it's a whole paragraph, sometimes it's just a few words. It really just depends on the book. But I also like it when I tab with one color because I can match it to the book. So The Great Gatsby, this copy has a lot of orange on it, so I chose little orange tabs, which is just something that's aesthetically pleasing to me. So yes, this is my favorite way to annotate just because I think it looks really cohesive and it helps me just sort of organize in my brain. Okay, this is what I'm annotating for. Now, with books that I know I'm gonna love, I typically always tend to kind of go overboard. For example, this book, The Fault in Our Stars. If you guys didn't know, if you didn't know about The Fault in Our Stars, I'm a little worried about you. This is one of my favorite books of all time. That's not a surprise. As you can see, this is very tabbed, and not only that, but I have insane amount of annotations and different colors and little writings in the margins, and needless to say, this was a very fun time annotating. It's funny, I'll even flip back through and read some of my like quotes that I wrote in the margins on some of these pages, and some of them are like paragraphs long. And I just think that's really funny. This method of annotating is where I have a different color that represents different things. So usually I have a key in the front of the book. I think this one actually fell out, but I can just tell you usually what I do with these different colors. So the pink color is usually moments that I love. Green is things that I hate. Purple is things that I find funny. Blue are sad moments. There's a lot of blue in this book, everyone. And then orange is usually the color that's sort of left out. Because like the packs that I have come in like groups, so you have to kind of use up all of the tabs before you move on. So usually when I'm left with one specific color, I'll just sort of substitute that one out for the next book that I annotate. So for example, if I was left over with a lot of orange, next time I would make my moments that I love orange instead of pink, just to sort of get rid of the tabs. Anyway, this method of annotating is really fun because if I'm just in the mood for a quick flip through, I can look quickly through my tabs and be like, okay, what moments did I love, and go and read those. Or what moments did I really not like and what didn't I like about them? And I can go and reference the book really easily. Also in this one, I tried a new method of underlining with the specific color. I think honestly this was just me being extra and it took way too much time and effort on my part. So I always just underline things in pencil or black now, just because it's easier for me to have one pen out instead of 5 colored pencils, and it's also just easier to carry around in my bag. But yes, this is an example of a book that I heavily annotated, and it was a fun time, and I look forward to rereading this copy in the future and seeing what I liked and what I didn't like, and if any of those things changed. So one final annotation method that I haven't mentioned yet is one that I typically use for school. For example, we had to read Of Mice and Men for one of my literature classes, and basically our assignment for this book was to find 3 key themes throughout the book. So we had a list with a bunch of themes and we had to go in and sort of write down evidence of those themes from the book. So when I was reading this, I had a different color that correlated to each theme, and throughout my reading process I would sort of do my work where I'd write down the passage or the section that I needed, and I'd have it in my book to come back to later when I was writing my paper. So I can't remember exactly what the themes were for this book, but apparently there was a lot of one color and literally 2 of one. I don't know how well written this paper actually was. I think it was maybe focused heavily on one theme. But I do really like this way of annotating, especially for school. I think it's really nice to be able to organize your thoughts and themes this way. So I typically won't really do this on my own, but definitely when I have reading assigned for school, whether it's like an actual book or an article or a paper, I'll tend to do this just because it helps me sort of organize my thoughts better. Anyway, these are some examples of the ways I annotate. I hope you learned something from this. I hope you enjoyed it. I don't really know. I just made this video to share a little bit about what I do and the methods that I like to annotate with. So don't forget to follow me on social media. I have an Etsy shop called Stella Stationery on Etsy. Please look forward to next week's video. I have a fun reading vlog planned. And thank you for watching. And I will see you in my next one. Bye.